Welcome to STOIC PSYCHE Wisdom. In today's video, we delve into a story that begins with a simple encounter but unfolds into a complex narrative of connection, memory, and introspection. Chapter 1: The Unexpected Reunion. It was an ordinary Wednesday evening, the kind where the day's events blur into the next, especially when solitude has become a familiar companion. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the rooftops. I had just concluded a client call, closed my laptop, and poured myself a glass of wine, ready to embrace the quietude of another solitary evening. Then I noticed him, leaning against the hood of a dusty blue car parked just outside my driveway. He appeared frustrated, one hand ruffling his hair, the other tinkering under the open hood. At first glance, he was just a tall, broad-shouldered silhouette, glistening with sweat under the fading sunlight. But then he turned. "Noah," I whispered, more to myself than to him. It had been years, 6, maybe 7, since I last saw him. Back then, he was a lanky teenager, sneaking energy drinks behind his mom's back and sulking in the corner at backyard barbecues. Now he stood before me transformed. "Hey, Emily," he greeted, his voice deeper, more resonant than I remembered. I forced a polite smile, my heart fluttering for reasons I couldn't quite name. "Noah, wow, you've grown up," I managed, understating the transformation before me. "Car died," he shrugged. "Just my luck. I was visiting my mom, figured I'd take the long route home. Didn't know I'd end up here. Didn't know, or planned it." Something in his tone made the hairs on my arms rise, not in fear, but in alertness. I should have offered to call a tow, or suggested he wait in his car. Instead, I opened my gate. "You can come in. I've got a cold drink, and it's too hot to be standing out here." He didn't hesitate. Grabbing his bag from the passenger seat, he closed the hood and walked through the gate like he belonged. And I didn't stop him. Not that night, not the next. Chapter 2: Echoes of the Past. He sat across from me at the kitchen island, sipping iced tea as if it were a routine. His fingers tapped against the countertop, his eyes meeting mine without flinching. There was no awkwardness in him, none of the unease blooming under my skin. He knew what he was doing. I just didn't know if I was ready to admit I did too. "So," he began, voice casual, "still got that white hammock out back?" I blinked. "The hammock? Yeah, I haven't used it in ages." He smiled. "I remember falling out of that thing one summer. Think I was 16. You brought me lemonade and laughed at me." I laughed now, nervously. "You always were a little dramatic." "Maybe," he said, eyes narrowing playfully. "Or maybe you just liked seeing me blush." There was a pause, just long enough for my stomach to tighten. I looked away, brushing invisible crumbs from the counter. That summer, I had almost forgotten. He was visiting for 2 weeks while his mom, my old friend, traveled overseas. He was tall for 16, quiet, observant. I thought he was just another sulking teenager, until the night I found him in the backyard under the stars, music playing softly from his phone. We talked, laughed, and then he leaned in just enough to ask, "Do people always make you feel like you're too much?" I never answered. I just looked at him, and for a second, I saw something raw behind those teenage eyes. Then I laughed it off, brushed it away. But apparently, he never did. Back in the kitchen, he tilted his head. "You remember that week, don't you?" I shouldn't have paused, should have lied, should have said no. But the truth curled on my tongue like smoke. "I do." His smile didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Satisfaction, relief, something darker. I think I started falling for you then, he said, just like that. No build-up, no warning, no space to run. And all I could do was breathe and realize I'd just unlocked something I might not be able to close again. Chapter 3. The Unspoken. I told myself it would be the last time. That once he left, this strange tension, this heat clinging to the edges of our words, would cool, fade, vanish, like it never happened. I even rehearsed it. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck with the car. Be well, Noah. But when he stood at the door and turned to face me, something in me stalled. Your house still smells the same, he said softly, like vanilla and cedar and something I never figured out. Lavender, I replied too fast. It's the candles. He didn't smile, didn't flirt. He just looked at me, steady, like he was waiting. I used to wonder, he said, voice low, what it'd feel like to come back here, not as a kid, but as someone you'd actually see. I felt my throat tighten. I do see you, I whispered. And I meant it. Too much, maybe. It was a dangerous thing to say. He stepped forward, not too close, just enough for me to feel the gravity. I don't want to mess anything up, he said, but I don't want to pretend either. There was a choice in the air, sharp, pressing. I could end it right there. I could laugh, tease, push him out the door with that soft, condescending smile we women are trained to wear when men get too close. But I didn't. Instead, I did something worse. I stepped aside. He didn't hesitate, just walked back in, slow, certain. I followed, closing the door behind us. We didn't touch, didn't kiss. We just sat on the couch, not even facing each other, and talked about music, about our worst dates, about how everyone wants something from you, but rarely offers themselves in return. And somewhere in the middle of it, when the sky outside had darkened and the room was lit only by the flicker of candlelight, I realized I didn't want him to leave. Not because I was lonely, but because, for the first time in years, I felt like someone was choosing me, not out of nostalgia or need, but out of intent. And I let that mean more than it should. Chapter 4. The Morning. After. The morning after, I told myself nothing had happened. We talked, that was all. No lines crossed, no promises made, no sins committed. But something had shifted, silently, permanently. I felt it in the way I lingered in the kitchen, wondering if he'd text. I felt it in the way I brushed my hair twice before a grocery run. And I especially felt it when my phone rang that afternoon, and his name lit up the screen. Jason, my ex-husband. We hadn't spoken in months. Our divorce had been clean, almost too polite. We'd both agreed it was time. No drama, no scandal, just the quiet heartbreak of two people who stopped being each other's home. I hesitated before answering. I always did. Hello? His voice was warm, curious, too curious. Hey, just thought I'd check in, see how you've been. I stiffened. I'm good. Why? A pause. I heard Noah's back in town. My stomach turned cold. What does that have to do with me? Jason chuckled lightly. Nothing. Just saw a picture someone sent. You two sitting on your porch. Looked cozy. I froze. Porch picture. There was no photo taken. No one had been around. I was sure of it. Who sent it? I asked, trying to stay calm. Don't know. Some mutual friend of yours and his mom, I think. I ended the call a few minutes later, pretending it was nothing. But the moment I hung up, I stared at my front door like it was watching me. And then it hit me. That night, when I'd stepped out to water the plants, Noah had followed, leaning on the rail with a beer, teasing me about the wind chimes. We'd laughed. Too loud, too close. Someone had seen. Or worse, someone had planned to be seen. My heart raced as I opened my messages. Nothing from Noah. No apology. No explanation. Just the last thing he sent hours before. Thinking about you. And for the first time, it wasn't flattering. It was calculated. Chapter 5. The Revelation. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the photo. Who took it? Why it was sent? And how Jason, of all people, was the one to deliver the warning. Warning. That's what it was. Not jealousy, not curiosity. It felt like a flare in the dark. Something's off, Emily. Pay attention. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to spiral. I wasn't going to let something, whatever this was, take over my life. So when Noah texted, "Mind if I stop by?" I typed, "No, please don't," and hit send before I could hesitate. But the knock came anyway. Same rhythm, same confidence. I opened the door, arms crossed. "Did you not get my text?" He smiled. "I got it." I stared. "Then why are you here?" His eyes didn't waver. "Because I think you're scared, and I think you'll regret pushing me away." I stepped aside, barely letting him in. "I'm not playing games, Noah." "Neither am I," he said calmly, walking past me like he belonged there. That's when I noticed it. A bag by the door. His bag. "You brought a bag?" I asked, heart slowing. He turned casually. "I left it here last time." "No, you didn't." He smiled. Something tight wrapped around my chest. "Noah," I said slowly, "why do I feel like you're not just showing up? You're setting something up." He didn't deny it. He sat on the edge of my couch and looked up at me, almost tender. I moved. Chapter 6. The Confession. "I moved back," he said softly. "For good." The words landed with a dull thud in my chest. I felt the air in the room shift. Something about the way he said it, not as a question, not as a proposition, but as a statement, like a stone laid firmly into place, made it clear this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a plan. "You moved back?" I echoed cautiously. "To this town?" "To this neighborhood," he said. "2 blocks over. There's a duplex with a small studio above the garage. I signed the lease last week." I blinked. "And you didn't think to mention that sooner?" "I didn't want to scare you off." My throat tightened. "Scare me off? Noah, what exactly are you doing here?" He stood up then, slowly, taking a few steps closer, not invading, but just close enough to make my pulse flicker in my neck. "I've thought about you for years, Emily," he said, not obsessively, not like some unhinged fantasy, but genuinely. "You were the first person who made me feel seen, not as a kid, not as someone's responsibility." As a man, I opened my mouth, closed it again, and now that I'm older, I can't pretend that didn't mean something. I folded my arms across my chest, not to block him out, but to hold myself together. "You think I haven't had people tell me they see me?" I said, voice low. "You think you're the only one who ever made me feel that way?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "But I think I'm the only one who remembered when it mattered." That stopped me, because as much as I wanted to dismiss him, part of me knew he was right. The kind of right that feels like a warning and a promise at the same time. "You're not that kid anymore," I whispered. "But I'm still the woman who watched you become him." He nodded. "That's why this matters. Because you knew me before I knew myself, and now I know exactly who I am and what I want." He wasn't saying it to seduce. He was saying it because it was true. And that truth terrified me. Chapter 7. The line between then and now. I made tea that night. I needed something grounding, something to keep my hands busy while my thoughts refused to stay still. Noah sat in the chair by the window, silent, watching the steam rise from his mug. Outside, the sky was velvet black, and the wind nudged the chimes just enough to sound like ghosts whispering. "You realize how dangerous this is," I said quietly, finally breaking the silence. He looked up. "What, the tea? Or you and me?" "You and me," I answered. "I do," he said, "and I'm still here. But what if this is just nostalgia? A moment? A fantasy you're mistaking for something real?" He leaned forward. "Then let me prove it's more than that." I sighed. "And what if I let you and regret it?" "Then regret it," he said simply. "But at least you'll know." He always had a way of cornering the truth, not with aggression, but with presence. That's what scared me the most. Not his confidence, but my inability to find a lie strong enough to stand against it. Because I didn't want to regret it. I wanted to believe him. But belief is dangerous when it's built on memory. And memory is fragile when filtered through longing. Chapter 8. The rift days passed. He stopped texting. At first, I thought it was space, maybe even respect. But then silence turned into avoidance. No likes on my posts. No appearance during his morning runs. Just quiet. It should have been relief. Instead, it was a void. Until I saw him, walking out of a cafe, laughing, with a woman. Younger, vibrant, hair twisted into a carefree bun. Her hand brushing his arm like she'd done it 100 times before. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did. Maybe that was the point. I stood behind the tinted glass of my car, breath fogging up the window, chest tight with something I didn't want to name. Jealousy? Number not exactly. It was realization. I'd let him in. Just enough. And now, I was the one on the outside looking in. The roles had reversed, and it stung. That night, I didn't wait for a call. I didn't check my phone. I just let the weight of it sit with me. The truth was simple. I had opened a door, thinking I controlled when it shut. But emotions don't work that way. Once the door is open, it doesn't close without leaving a mark. Chapter 9. The truth beneath it. All a week later, there was a knock. Not the usual 3-tap rhythm, just one, heavy knock. I opened the door and saw him. No smiles, no games, just Noah, barefaced, unfiltered. "We need to talk," he said. I let him in without a word. We sat in the dim light of my living room, the air thick with tension. "I'm not going to lie to you," he began. "That girl, Madeline, she's someone I dated a year ago. We met up, talked. That's all." I raised an eyebrow. "So I imagined the flirting?" He hesitated. "Maybe not. But it wasn't what it looked like. I needed clarity." "Clarity?" I scoffed. "By dragging someone else into your confusion?" "No," he said sharply. "I needed to be sure that what I feel for you isn't just nostalgia, or rebellion, or me chasing something forbidden." "And did you find your answer?" He nodded. "Yes, it's you." I exhaled slowly. "And what am I supposed to do with that?" "Whatever you want," he said. "But I won't pretend anymore. I'm not the kid in your guest room. I'm a man. And I want you. Fully. Unapologetically." My chest ached, not because of what he said, but because I felt it too. Had been feeling it since the night he reappeared. But I was older, wiser, and afraid. Because real love, the kind that comes with consequences, isn't about the moment. It's about the aftermath. Chapter 10. The choice. There comes a point when you realize the story you're writing with someone isn't just about desire, it's about timing, trust, and what you're willing to risk. I looked at him, really looked, not as a fantasy, not as a memory, as a man, standing in my living room, offering me something I hadn't had in years, honest vulnerability. "You're not asking for a fling," I said. "No," he replied. "I'm asking for a future." And that's when I knew. The hardest choices aren't between right and wrong. They're between safe and real.